Everyone who is learning English wants to succeed, but the sad reality is that most people will give up, and that includes you. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to prevent that from happening and become an unstoppable English learner. This video is all about stories, so let's start with a story about art. Most people are familiar with the idea that our ancestors decorated the walls of caves. These artworks typically depicted their everyday experiences in the world. Although they might seem simple by today's artistic standards, they hold an incredible secret. This image shows a deer hidden behind dozens of vertical lines. This image shows a goat with 2 heads. This image shows a mammoth with 4 trunks. The question is, why did these artists scratch over their work? Why did they draw animals with multiple heads and trunks? Was it a mistake? In 1990, a university professor called Edward Wachtel accidentally discovered the answer to this question. He was touring around France and visiting various caves to see the artwork in person. Most of the caves were illuminated with modern electric lights, but one of them wasn't, and his guide was using a small gas lantern which created a flickering, moving light. And that's when he saw it. By firelight, a secret of the cave painters was exposed. In the space of a few moments, I saw cuts and dissolves, change and movement. Forms appeared and disappeared, colors shifted and changed. In short, I was watching a movie. These prehistoric artists were creating living stories. It's a reminder that humans are natural storytellers, and stories have been a core part of the human experience for as long as we have existed. And stories have incredible power. Stories of gods, wars, heroes, life and death influence the past, present, and future of humanity. And belief in those stories can affect us in profound ways. Many people suffer from harmless growths called warts. These can easily be treated with medication, but there is another, more surprising way to remove warts. You can use the power of story. Studies have shown that suggestion therapy, where patients are told that their warts will disappear on their own without any treatment, is just as effective as any medication. The key to success was that the patients believed in the story. And this is where things start to take a turn into the mysterious world of the self. Because there are stories that we tell others and ourselves about who we are. For example, I am really bad at remembering names and dates. I don't have any artistic ability, but I'm good with numbers. I always make time for exercise and cooking healthy meals. In psychology, these stories are called your narrative identity. They are the stories that define and create you. In the end, you become the stories you tell about yourself. Now, what does any of this have to do with learning a language? Well, as I always say, the most important thing in the classroom isn't the technical stuff. It's mindset. When Zoltan Dornier, the world's leading expert in motivation in language learning, created a diagram of the psychology of the language learner, he put narrative identity right in the center. He said, "The way people shape their life narrative will shape their whole mindset." So, let's ask, As a language learner, what is your story? As a language learner, who are you? Let me give you some examples. I am really bad at remembering new words. My pronunciation is hard for other people to understand. I have a B2 level of English. To dig deeper, let me give you a hypothetical situation. Imagine that you are in your English class and the teacher asks the class a grammar question that you don't know the answer to. And then the teacher points at you and asks you for the answer. How do you feel? For most people, the emotion is fear. The fear of looking stupid, the fear of others judging you, the fear of not being as good as your classmates, the fear that you will never learn English, no matter how hard you try. And that becomes your story. At the beginning, I was so excited about learning English, but English is really hard and I keep making the same mistakes. I failed the exam twice. Everyone else learns so much faster than me. I'll never be able to speak English. I can't wait for this course to end. You might have experienced this for almost the entire time of your education. Every mispronunciation, every grammar mistake, every exam result wasn't a judgment about language, it was a judgment about you. I failed became I am a failure. It makes me so sad and so angry to imagine that this is the story of learning for so many people. But there's something even more sinister hidden deep in stories like this. In most language learning, you are not the hero of your own story. In fact, as a learner of English, you are often completely anonymous. The materials that you use are not designed for you. They are created by people thousands of miles away who don't know anything about you or your life. Same with the exams. The whole idea of standardized testing is that everyone gets exactly the same test. They don't measure the abilities that are important to you. And during the whole process, some powerful official judges you, whether you are using standard English and correct pronunciation. Sometimes it's not even a person who does this, it's a computer. From the moment you enter the process of learning English, the power of being the main character in your own story is taken away from you. Someone else is in control of your narrative. In the world of English, asking "who are you" is the wrong question. The right question is, what are you allowed to do? And sometimes you are not allowed to do very much. You're not allowed to get the job you want. You're not allowed to go to the university you want. You're not allowed to move to the country you want. You're not allowed to speak their language. It's you versus $1 billion industry. It's you versus the native speakers. You might think that I'm being dramatic and exaggerating the consequences of these inequalities of power. So let me tell you another story. In 1990, Avianca Flight 52 left Bogota, Colombia, to fly to New York. The first few hours of the flight were completely normal, but because of delays caused by bad weather in New York, the plane had to circle and wait for a slot to land. As the plane circled and waited, it slowly started to run out of fuel, but they didn't declare an emergency. Soon, the situation was so serious that they only had 27 minutes of fuel left, and the runway was 17 minutes away. They still didn't declare an emergency. Now they only had one chance to land in extreme weather conditions, and unfortunately, the strong winds forced them to abort that landing. After the aborted landing, the air traffic controller asked them to circle around and try again. Now they only had 7 minutes of fuel left, and the runway was more than 15 miles away. The plane was going to crash. It was guaranteed. The air traffic controller asked them, "Is that fine with you and your fuel?" And the co-pilot responded, "I guess so. Thank you very much." Then he turned to the pilot and he said, "The guy is angry." A few minutes later, the plane ran out of fuel, the engine stopped, and it crashed silently into the ground. It's incredible to think that even faced with certain death, the pilots didn't feel like they had the power to use language to save themselves and their passengers. They were still worried about being judged. Is that also going to be your story? Are you going to give up your power and go quietly into the night? I say no. You can change your story right now. When the teacher points at you to answer that grammar question, there is no more fear. You say, "I don't know. Show me." That is a truly powerful learning mindset. That mindset creates stories like this. Learning English is really hard and there's so much to learn, but that's why I have a teacher to help me, and every day I get a little bit better. I often make the same basic mistakes on the tests, but I remind myself that tests can help me to find things to improve, and I've been focusing on my problem areas. In class, we study a lot of grammar and vocabulary, but I know that's only a part of language. Anyway, outside the classroom, people don't seem to care about grammar. My objective is to be comfortable speaking English at my new job, so I've been pushing myself to join every single conversation and meeting at work. I don't know how long it will take for me to feel totally comfortable, and I have good days and bad days, but I know that I will keep improving if I keep practicing. The best thing is that I am introducing lots of new ideas at work. People are starting to listen to me. Now I have a voice. That was just an example of someone who has taken control of their story. I can't tell your story because it will always be the psychology of the stranger. Only you really know yourself. It's your narrative identity. Now I want to show you the person with all the power, the person who can achieve whatever they want. Are you ready? Look at that person reflected in the glass screen. You are the hero of your story. It's time to act like one.